Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 431. I didn't check that, but I think that's right. This is a DC
Please
Comics
be wrong.
podcast.
Please be wrong.
I appear, and joining me as always, the heckler from the other side of the screen is Matt.
Hey, what's up?
The DC Comics podcast, we get together to talk about the books this week. And this week, we may actually have a 60-minute episode, because we only have 4 books total. I only have 3. But I'm assuming Matt read the Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy thing.
Yeah, and you didn't? He had Mike Perkins art, and you chose not to.
I chose not to because it still felt like it was more tied to the Poison Ivy book than it was any Swamp
Yes
Thing.
and no. Yes and no, but we'll talk about it.
That's fine. That's fine. So yeah, coming up on this week's show, we get Action Comics 1073, Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, issue 2, Poison Ivy Swamp Thing, Feral Trees, issue 1, and The Nice House by the Sea, issue 4. And that is, I could have done a Patreon book. I was going to do a Patreon book, but then I felt really lazy and thought, you know what, I think it's funnier if I leave it till next week, when I will no doubt have tons of books. I've not checked yet, but I'm assuming I'm going to be horrified when we do the next week's bit at the end of the show. So we'll find out when the time comes. But after the last 2 monstrous weeks, I'm okay with a chill, quick episode. And yes, there shall be comics and things. Welcome everyone. Matt, how was your week?
Pretty okay. I mean, Halloween week is always pretty chaotic at work. So why would this week be any different? And I ate far too much candy because we got a grand total of 2 trick-or-treaters at the house. So yeah, a lot of candy left over to eat.
Well, you know, people probably think you're dodgy. You got that shifty look about you.
No. We have a lot of great decorations outside. Apparently kids go elsewhere. They don't stick to their neighborhoods. But I did have a nice young gentleman come with a Michael Myers mask. And it was like at 4 o'clock. So it wasn't even close to dark. And I said, wow, you guys are out here early. And he's like, oh yeah, we're hitting up this first and then we're going elsewhere. So, but we did get another, the second one came up during the yearly watch of Halloween. So that was a first. I got to answer the door while Michael Myers was up to his shenanigans. So that felt nice.
What's funny is that sunset here just now is at 4:30.
Yeah.
So 4 is pretty close to getting dark here at this point of the year.
Yeah.
You're closer to the equator though, so you don't see as much of a variance.
No, but it will be, I will be, if I go to the gym after work, I'll still be getting home closer to dark than even now. So because of the time change, but yeah, but I won't be going to work in the dark, which is nice.
Yeah. Daylight savings has no impact on me whatsoever.
Yeah.
I don't pay attention to it other than the fact that I have to schedule things with people in different time zones for a week or 2 weeks every 6 months or so. It's really wonky and difficult to do.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, is it pretty overcast year round for you? Where are you, neck of the woods?
No, I mean, the sunny day. I mean, people here will pretend that it is because they love to complain about the weather, but I mean, there's plenty of sunny days in the summer.
Yeah, because I think when I've looked, you guys are pretty on par with like Seattle and that, that latitude longitude kind of area. And I know it's very dreary, not a lot of sun. So this time of year hits and it gets darker earlier. People start getting all moody. But here not so much. Here it's still the desert. We still got a lot of sunshine.
Yeah, you're still burning alive in the hellfire that is Nevada.
Let's put it this way. My wife said it's going to be cold today, and it's still going to be 68 Fahrenheit, which I don't know what that translates to in y'all's.
Too warm, probably.
Yeah. And that's our version of too cold. So yes.
Yes. Nah. I'm just happy October's over. Not that I didn't enjoy it, but I had a lot of extra episodes of Screams After Midnight to edit, and things keeping me busy. It's nice that that's all been squared away, and now I can relax a little bit. November going to be a little bit lazier.
So out of those specials that you did what was your favorite thing you watched?
For Screams?
Yes, for Screams.
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like technically Terrifier 3 was for Screams, but I mean, it feels weird to.
Okay, let's do something that's smaller than Terrifier 3.
Let's not do any new releases. Okay, I'll leave that and then
Yeah.
a Violent Nature off the list. Out of the other stuff we did, what was the best? I mean, for one of the Patreon episodes, we did Frankenhooker, which holds up surprisingly well.
It does.
So that's I'd seen that before though, so that wasn't like a surprise.
So I was talking horror movies with some of the people at work, and there's an older lady I work with, and she was telling me that she doesn't watch horror movies because as a child, she watched Basket Case, and I was like, hearing this coming from a 50-year-old woman was a shock. I was not expecting that from her, and it ruined her for life because she watched it far too young. And yeah, so I thought that was pretty funny. And I bring that up because it's the same director, and I think creative, right? Writer too, as Frankenhooker.
I think Tynion Lauder, I think so.
Yeah.
He's got a movie called Brain Damage that I've not seen. I'll let you add that to the to-do list.
Gotcha. But yeah, Frankenhooker was a lot of fun. I wasn't expecting it to be as silly as it was. But yeah.
Yeah, it's basically just a B-movie version of Poor Things, long before Poor Things existed. And it has the great line of dialogue where the main character is watching like a talk show about, and it's women talking about how prostitutes are in danger all the time, how they're being treated, how they're being kept sort of under control by the pimps because they're all addicted to crack. Which, I mean, that's a whole thing to get to. But basically, the women on the TV saying, hey, they're all being slowly killed with this drug. And the main character then sort of pipes in and says, she's right, it is slowly killing them. And then he picks up a big jar of crystals and says, now this super crack will get the job done much faster. That line of dialogue absolutely broke me.
Yes.
So, yes, if you want to watch a surprisingly kind of feminist, like over the top B movie, then Frankenhooker is the pick for you.
Just the phrase super crack.
Yeah, super crack.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, the main character's got a thick New Jersey accent the entire time, which just makes everything he says a bit funnier.
Yep. Yes.
So, yes. I mean, my week was just kind of busy wrapping up October stuff, and that's pretty much it. I don't have too much to add. So we can get into the comic stuff, which we'll start off with the Kindle rankings, the list formerly known as the ComiXology Top 10. Obviously, it's kind of a weird week, so week 5, which means, it means DC had a weird week. Marvel tend to just kind of like, I don't know, spread their books out.
They still roll out their regular stuff. Yeah, I'm looking at the list right now, and it's typical books, nothing too special.
It's because they don't schedule to a strict like the same, because with DC, rather than something changes or has a delay, typically a week 1 has all the same books as week 1 did the previous month. Marvel, I don't feel operate like that. I feel like Marvel books are sliding around the month constantly, just on a regular schedule. So they just kind of like fill some of week 5 up with whatever from the rest of the month. Anyway, what is your number one guess, or your guess for number 1, I should say?
All right, so I'm going to guess, looking at this, and I'm going to go with Action Comics.
Nope.
Amazing Spider-Man.
Nope.
No, wow. All right, last guess. Hold on. What's this right here? Ooh, there could be that. Because I didn't see any new X books. That's why I went with those top 2, because those are the top 2 on League of Comic Geeks. Let's take a thing here. Let's go Ultimate X-Men.
Nope.
All right. Took 3 swinging. 3 strikes, you're out. What's number 1?
Wolverine Revenge, issue 3.
I kind of hesitated. That was the next X book I looked at, but yeah.
Number 2 is Action Comics. Number 3 is Amazing Spider-Man. Number 4 is Batman: The Last Halloween. Number 5 is NYX. Number 6 is Ultimate X-Men. Number 7 is Star Wars Battle of Jakku. 3 more subtitles, which are cut off in the title, but that'll do. Number 8, I should say, is Captain America. Number 9 is We Called Them Giants, which is a Kieran Gillen book. So you just know that little pervert Connor Ryan's off somewhere jerking it to this book.
Okay.
He's a deviant, Matt. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, yes, I know.
Ginger deviant. And then number 10 is Poison Ivy, Swamp Thing, Feral Trees. So there you go.
When you said pervert, I thought you were just going with a general throughout an insult. Then you went to the second half of that, and honestly, I didn't know how to respond.
That's okay. It can sit there. It speaks for itself. Yeah. Nice House by the Sea was number 13, which is both good, but also maybe indicates that, that said, though, it did beat Venom War Fantastic Four, which I don't know how well that's necessarily doing.
Also the first one I've seen with the Vertigo branding come back. So that's pretty
that's
cool.
right. I didn't even noticed that. You're right. The Vertigo was on that new Nice House by the Sea, which is annoying from a consistency point of view because issues 1 through 3 do not have that. But
nope.
Oh well. Guess we just have to live with it. It's fine. So yeah, there you go. Nothing super. I mean, I will say this: Marvel didn't have as many books as I thought they did, but it's still enough that it feels a lot bigger than DC's week. There was a Predator versus Black Panther book this week as well, by Benjamin Percy.
You know what I like about Percy? He knows kind of where he's at. He's like, it'd be fun to write Black Panther versus Predator. It looks like I'm at the place that has both licenses. Yeah,
that's a thing. Actually, speaking of, so we're getting all the Alien and Predator stuff soon, by the sounds of it. So there's a Predator sequel or another Predator movie from Trachtenberg coming next year called Predator Badlands. There's apparently also an animated thing that's going to be coming out as well. There's going to be a sequel to Alien Romulus. There's an Alien TV show called Alien Earth. And just this week, Ridley Scott casually just sort of pointed out, we're developing an Alien sequel for me as well, separate from the other one. Now, maybe that's just wishful thinking on his part, because he wants to tell the rest of the fingering and the blowing story with David. But
the rise of David.
Like, I love Alien, I do, but having two separate sequels at the same time in development's too many. Right? A sequel and a TV show is more than enough for one. Like, don't oversaturate, damn it. That's the problem with freaking Hollywood, is everything gets oversaturated now. One thing works, do 50 of them.
Well, and at least with the Predator thing, Badlands is coming, and then the animated one seems like an anthology. So it just seems like, a fun way to tell Predator stories.
That seems like more of like an Animatrix coming out on DVD with the main movies coming out in the theaters kind of thing.
And it's not like they're telling full big stories like Badlands or Prey or whatever. So
honestly, if there's any concern about the animated thing, which I'm not even sure if I'll bother watching, to be honest, is that are you not kind of wasting some of the potential Predator settings on these animated shorts? Like, you're going to do a Shogun setting for Predator. That could just be a movie. Like, why are we wasting that on a 25-minute animated segment? But that's just being really pessimistic about it.
But I agree, because these are stuff that the fans have talked about for years, right?
Yes.
So I mean, the fact that we got Prey and it was Native Americans in the that time period, and I think it's the early 1800s, versus a Predator. That's really cool. I mean, I want to see a full.
I want to say it was further back than that. I want to say it was more like 1600s or something like that.
Like 16, 17? Okay. Well, I just know there's fur trappers in the area that they were in, so it had to be at least past the 1700s.
Yeah, I mean, I am no expert by all means. I feel like I remember the date. Maybe
late 1700s at the earliest. But I'm feeling like the neck of the woods are in. But yeah, what was it?
So how Google does that thing there when you search for something, it'll give you the AI result first. This is what the AI said. I've got a feeling it's wrong. The 2024 film Prey, which is not 2024, might I add.
No.
So that's important to note. Is set in the present day. That's what it says. 1719 is according to Wikipedia.
Right. So you're closer than I was, but yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't claiming to know the exact year. I mean, I'm not that much of a psychopath.
No. But 1719 is a lot closer to 1600s than early 1800s, right?
Yeah. I guess by the 1800s, I just expect more. I mean, because I guess what I'm saying is I didn't think it was after 1776. Is I guess the point I'm making, because
gotcha.
Why I know America's goddamn birthday when I don't know any other country's birthday. I don't know.
Well, just because your country's so old that you guys don't even talk about it, you know?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Like there's buildings. There's probably buildings in your neck of the woods that are older than my country.
That's probably true. Also, you never
know?
shut up about your country's birthday.
Yeah, hell yeah, back-to-back world champs.
Anyway, there you go. We can get into the comics then, shall we?
Yeah.
First up, Action Comics 1073. Mark Waid writing with Clayton Henry on the art. So, yeah, we've got more of this Phantom Zone stuff. We have kind of like an updated kind of... Oh, I say update. Superman kind of reiterates the backstory of the Phantom Zone and Jor-El making it. With an emphasis kind of on the idea that he's questioning if his father was cold enough to just disregard concerns of how inhumane like sending people to the Phantom Zone actually was. He kind of points out that, well, Kryptonians were good people by and large. They did kind of value science and logic to a point of maybe ignoring the humanity of certain things.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear him kind of like critique like the culture of Krypton a little bit and how it's different from Earth.
Because there's a lot of stuff that gets made about Superman Kryptonian or Superman of Earth and what, kind of what versions we have here. And it seems like Mark Waid's definitely leaning more into the, he respects Krypton, but he understands what the flaws were and why it's not there anymore. It's not like this halcyon view of Krypton in and of itself. Because when he says, here that they, that science became their religion and that kind of overrode their sense of empathy, I think that puts it perfectly in the Krypton that we've seen throughout the Superman stories. So
yeah, you think a society based more on science and technology would adhere the warnings of the planet's going to die. Like you think they'd like? I get why Earth wouldn't listen to that because I'm seeing it every day with my own eyes. The Earth won't listen to that, but Krypton, you expect would.
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing, but instead of putting it on some creator or trying to disregard, I felt like Krypton's like, oh, we'll figure it out, right? Well, science will lead us to the way.
Arrogance is what you're saying.
Yes, is the arrogance that's there, and Jor-El. That's the thing about Jor-El sending his only son away from it all, So it all fits in, but yeah, and just the way
more arrogance instead of ignorance.
Yes, and then here with Superman talking about like him not wanting to use the Phantom Zone unless it absolutely called for it. I thought that was a nice touch too, where he's like, I tried to use the Phantom Zone projector very sparingly because of this, and kind of just sets the stage for where this is going to go.
Yeah, I was a little bit more reiteration about Mon-El and the fact that he's only alive because everything in here's in stasis. No one in here needs to sleep. Or maybe even eat. He didn't say that, but I'm going to extrapolate that from everything else he says.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of vegetation.
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of food going around. But it means that because no one's sleeping, they've kind of got all of the time in the world to like let problems fester and like connive and get on each other's nerves. Like, so there's a psychological impact from not having to sleep beyond the physical need for the rest, which is. You'd almost do an entire Phantom Zone story just about that, to be honest, if you really wanted to.
Well, that's a horror story, right? The you're up, but you don't know for how long, right? Because days are now meaningless. So you could have been, up and moving around. It's been 100 years or whatever. Like that's the type of stuff that really, really gets on me.
Oh yeah,
the lacking perception of reality and whatnot.
So they're flying through the air. Superman's talking about how his bracelet's like less than half of its charge left, so. Even though he feels bad for putting everyone in danger, he can't really, expense the flying powers that it would take on the bracelet. He would be kind of left without power. Another ship shows up, a new version of the same ship, basically, that the Aether has given to the Zadur, right? That's his name?
Zadu, yeah.
Zadu.
And it looks bio-organic, kind of, right? There's like eyes on it.
Yes. It's not even just two eyes either. There's like, I don't know, 7, 8 eyes sticking out the side of that thing.
It looks very creepy.
Yeah. So Superman goes to deal with it. Gets hit with some cannons. Zadu kind of he knows about the bracelet. He's trying to deplete the bracelet because every time Superman takes a hit and doesn't get hurt, it's depleting some of his solar energy. Superman realizes he has to finish it quickly, so we get this nice big sort of just 3-panel page where he flies towards us in the top panel and then flies through the ship in the middle panel, and then it's just black in the bottom. We've seen this type of thing before with Superman and other characters with this type of strength, where they just fly through a spaceship or something like that, and the whole thing explodes.
Yeah, and this feels like a not quite a self-sacrifice, but Superman knowing that this was his Hail Mary, that he might have to deplete his energy here.
Yeah.
Because this one big move. So fingers crossed that it worked.
Yeah, and then we go to the subplot of the book, which is Keenan and Connor, who it turns out they're in a museum with all the artifacts from the Fortress of Wen,
including themselves. Just the idea that these two are a museum exhibit,
and they try and raise their concerns with the alien or robot dude that's kind of walking around, and he doesn't really want to hear it. Connor goes a bit hot-headed, tries to complain, and Kane steps in and tries to speak more diplomatically, shall we say. But I did like the little bit here where he's trying to explain that all these things belong to Superman, and it says who he is. He says, "I'm Superman," with the hyphen. He's like, "So they're yours?" He's like, "No, not really." And Connor jumps in and says, "You can't pronounce the hyphen. I keep telling you this." Which is true. The name only works on the page because we can read it that way and see it.
Right.
So, it's a fun little bit in the universe.
Very, very fun. This is an odd couple pairing that I would like a backup for. Just the adventures of these two, or misadventures, rather.
I mean, this basically is a backup, but just in the middle of the book.
Yeah. But, keep something like this going from Waid. I think it would be fun. But yeah, they have all these things from different cultures, and, there's all this stuff from Thanagar. Right, and we know from Green Lantern now that Thanagar has been destroyed by Mogo.
That feels a nice bit of synchronicity, that.
By Varen, or not Varen, was it Theron?
Tharos, yes.
All of them. Anyways, it's been destroyed, so it looks like this is a collection of civilizations that no longer exist. Right, so they've come in. Still, we don't know how exactly they breached the fortress and took all this Kryptonian stuff.
Yeah,
it is on display now.
I like the detail about how they're saying, Krypton's a lost civilization, this has to all be preserved and put on show, to which, one of them says, but there's survivors, there's a few of them. And he's like, it's a rounding error. And I'm like, I mean, he's not wrong. No. 2 people is kind of a rounding error in the grand scheme of an entire civilization.
Well, yeah, but that also goes into the beginning of the book where the lack of empathy, right? That they're just looking at this, a civilization is made up of, a culture and of a people, right? And if you're just looking at it from the macro, from the outside, you forget that civilization were those people. And that's what, a lot like Superman's talking about the Kryptonians and their lack of empathy and their drive for science. This seems to go hand in hand with that.
So yeah, back to Superman. He pulls out his little button to take him back to Earth because he's out of power. He realizes he has to leave, retreat, come back with some more force, come back with some allies perhaps. But Xadu blasts it out of his hand, so they don't really address it again afterwards. So I'm not sure if he was able to grab it again or if he's just stuck here for the time being. But the big thing here is that Mon-El jumps in and punches Xadu with Superman's second bracelet. He actually gave one to Mon-El so that he'd have a bit of power for a touch. Yeah,
he split his energy here.
So Superman takes that bracelet back, which now has about half of its charge left. So one bracelet's completely depleted, and the second one has got about half left, maybe a bit less. And this is where Aether shows up and is huge and basically banishes Xadu for failing to get Superman, even though he's like, hey, he's right here. It's like, yes, but of his own volition, you've not captured him, so you're getting banished down the time hole at the center of the Phantom Zone. So it's like, okay, that's a thing you're introducing.
Throws him into a wormhole.
Yeah. It's like, okay, all right, fair enough. So he's begging no, because it'll just be this, what do you call it? The eye of the zone, a bottomless pit of history, where time and space are intertwined and infinite madness. So it's just kind of banish him to almost like a worse version of the Phantom Zone, where you're just confused and disorientated the whole time. But that ultimately is what also happens to Superman. Superman tries to stand up to Aether. Aether just grabs him and throws him into the same eye of the zone.
He just says, yeet.
So the big cliffhanger at the end of this, as he's falling through this weird wormhole or the eye of the zone, whatever you want to call it, is that he's able to like it's not quite a wormhole because there is like a physical exterior to this, and he's able to grab onto one of the cracks, and through each of the cracks there's different like memories, right? He's seeing different things in time. Supergirl using the Phantom Zone projector, something that looks like Superboy, like as in him as Superboy. He's able to grab onto one crack and fight his way through. He's hoping that it'll take him back to Earth. He comes through this crack in the space-time continuum. He's in a field. It looks like Earth, and he's like, wait, why don't I feel like the sun's recharging me? Why do I feel like gravity's really strong? And then he looks up, and the final page is that he's not on Earth. He's came through a crack in time, not Darkseid's crack, but a different crack in time. He's on Krypton before the destruction of Krypton. It's a good final page. Given that... So here's the thing. There is far too many stories in Superman where he somehow ends up on Krypton before it was destroyed. Writers do it too often. That is a blanket thing I will say, and I don't think this is exempt from that. But what I will say is good about this is that because Mark Waid already set up the idea that Superman is questioning the ethics of Kryptonian society, at the very least he's already established what this is probably going to explore and how Superman's going to learn and interact about, you know, like how Krypton functions. Maybe, I mean, it says next time the secret of Jor-El, so presumably he's going to see. So, will he talk to Jor-El? Will he just sort of witness it from afar? I don't know. It depends how stealthy he wants to be.
And are we doing timey-wimey rules here, right? Where can he even talk to Jor-El? Can he be truthful?
Oh, is he a ghost just sort of walking around Krypton effectively? Yeah.
Right. Can he do this? Is he really there? I mean, it seems like he's really there from coming through that.
But based on him saying the sun's affected him, I would say he's physically there. But
like, can he even, will he be able to interact with them? Or will he want to?
I could see him deciding that he can't because it would mess up space-time. So
space, right?
So he'll keep his distance or put on a disguise and pretend. At the very least, I would think he might change his outfit and like just pretend to be whoever. So that if he does talk to Jor-El, Jor-El won't know it's his son from the future.
Right. Well, because he is wearing the crest of the House of El as well. So like he's
obviously that's why I'm saying change his clothes, like put on a disguise. But obviously his dad's not going to recognize this grown man as his son, right? He's not going to know who he is. So yeah, I don't know. I think that this is a fun cliffhanger in the context of the story, and I think it's interesting that we're going to get to see him explore the questions that he raised at the start of the issue, which is this idea of like, were they kind of bastards for doing this in the first place? And now Superman's going to get to actually maybe ask some of those questions and understand it better. Yeah. I think that part of it makes this like a logical place for this to go. But with the acknowledgement that too many stories in Superman's history have done he's somehow on Krypton before he exploded just so he can see it. Even though the whole point of his character is that he was, sent away as a baby and never saw any of it. At least, not in any way that he could remember, at least. So
right. Well, that's always what I liked about later writers with Kara versus Clark, is that Clark doesn't remember Krypton. Kara very much does. So it's a different vibe when Clark is trying to honor Krypton versus Kara, who's like, no, I this is what it was like.
Supergirl is actually, her experience in a weird way is, I mean, I guess you could say it's 50-50 and like in the middle, but I would say it's much closer to Batman's experience. And Batman remembers his parents. He had time with them. He knows what he's missing. Kara's the same, but with the entire planet. Right.
So seeing Clark interact here through Mark Waid's lens too, and knowing how Waid is, I feel like this is going to be, like you said, Clark questioning them and maybe not trying to change things, but almost getting a different perspective. Yeah. Like, it's not exactly what he thinks. Like, maybe Jor-El does know and he tries to tell them not to, but they won't listen to him, just like they don't listen to him.
That's possible. Yeah. But then it would be interesting to see why everyone in the Phantom Zone still thinks Jor-El is their jailer. Like, he's the one responsible. Maybe they threw him under the bus as the public figure of it, but he didn't want to be or something. I don't know. It's interesting. I think that the important thing here, though, is that it feels that there's a story purpose for doing the Krypton part of this story, as opposed to, won't it be amazing if we see Superman go back to Krypton? No, it's not, because we've seen it like 100 times at this point, and it's kind of lost its impact every single time. So, but yeah, so very, very positive overall on what it's doing with the story, though. So I have no complaints on that side of things.
And also, I just like seeing Ether throw Clark down through there. It was just kind of funny. just
Oh,
to see
yeah.
this big monster throw Superman into a wormhole tunnel. But it kind of shows the scale of things and like what's going to go on with Mon-El as well. Because I was thinking if right, he has the lead poisoning, that's what sent him to the Phantom Zone. And if he put on that band, would that energy band that gave Clark his powers, is that going to kickstart his metabolism? So now's Mon-El having the effects of the lead poisoning.
Oh, I don't know. I would guess no, because I don't think it has anything to do with the. Like, it's giving him solar power, but it's not changing the fact that the Phantom Zone makes it so you don't need to sleep or eat or anything like that. Like, all that stuff still. Because is Superman eating while he's here? I don't think so.
Right.
Oh.
So, because
Yeah.
it was. I think that's not. What's the word? I feel like Waid putting emphasis on that, like the metabolism's frozen, right? I feel like that's going to come around in some way. But yeah, no, that was a fun reveal too with Mon-El having the other wristman to come in and help.
I like the idea of a story where a villain imprisons Superman somehow, because the idea is that while he'll last longer, eventually he will just starve to death, and some evil villain tries to do that. So Superman's in a cage for like maybe a year even, like, and he's almost dying before he gets saved or is able to fight his way out. But I want a story about Superman being starved to death.
Pete's not out of October viewing yet.
No, I just
his brain's still there.
It's such a normal thing that he presumably still needs to eat for sustenance. Because the sun gives him energy. I don't think it gives him regular.
Different writers have done that. That technically he doesn't eat. It's more of a social thing when he goes to eat, because the solar power gives him that energy that he needs. Like that, why we eat.
I mean, that's fair.
But you can still deprive him of solar energy, and it's the same thing. Past a certain point, he's going to have to.
I think the reason why that doesn't hold up for me as an explanation, though, is because there's so many stories where he's either on Krypton or he's in space, and all that happens when he's not away from the sun, or he's away from the sun, is that he just loses his powers. He just becomes a normal human, which would imply that he still, presumably at least when he's away from the sun, he still has to eat to just keep himself going like everyone else does.
True.
So that's my logic, and I'm sticking to it. Anyway, the backup, it's an interesting chapter in the Supergirl story, because it's actually presented from the perspective of this prisoner that she's coming to find, and very mysterious, very ominous. We don't really get a good look at, like, I mean, if they have a face under there. It has
like a mirror mask kind of vibe to it, right?
It's a very kind of alien style sort of helmet and like visor, and we don't really see. Like, I'm assuming that is a mask and not, like, this is some alien race, that this is just what they look like. But, basically, there's a lot of... He's basically talking about... I say he, maybe a she. Talking about how memories are looping. And, like... But it's kind of like almost gobbledygook as someone who's, like, trapped in their mind or something like that. And or someone who can see all of time and is, like, burdened with all the knowledge of it. There's a page here where it's like you can kind of see like what they're seeing inside their helmet, and it's like all these different images from not just like one place. Like there's clearly places on Earth. In fact, there's one panel there that I think's maybe a reference to being super, which I thought was a cool little touch. But there's those panels of aliens like having their newborns and horses, butterflies, and all that. But this being can sense that Kara's coming. And it talks a lot about silence, talks a lot about what's coming, says, is that why they sent her? Because she can understand and maybe sympathize with some of what he's going through. But, it's all the narrations from his perspective, and the book just ends with Supergirl arriving on this, what turns out to be a tiny, tiny little moon or planet. And you can tell that because when she lands the ship on it, the ship is like, basically teetering on like one side of the sphere. Like, it's the idea that the planet is so small that if you parked a car on it, the car would be sitting on its middle, and the tips of the car would be like dangling off the sides. It's tiny, so but she uses the key thing she got from the robot last time, and inside is this prisoner, and she's like, says who she is, and she's there to take him away to make him pay for the crimes that he's committed. But interestingly, again, very horror movie vibes, is that when she opens the door, I don't know if she sees this, but we see in the reflection or the playback of this visor a panel of her screaming, presumably from the future.
Yes.
Which is very ominous. I really like, obviously, I can't really say much about what this character is yet. It honestly is just a bunch of, like, David Lynch style, like, gobbledygook.
Which means it's right up your alley.
Yeah. I mean, no, I mean, that can be bad if it's not handled well, but I will say I like the vibe of this, and it just felt like a nice little, like, because we've been talking about this prisoner for 3 backups already, so giving them this issue to have this kind of mysterious introduction is very interesting. The end of it seems to be that as she's, like, meeting him for the first time, a ship, I think, arrives overhead. I think that's what that is anyway.
It looks like the ship that she just escaped that had all the spiders on it, that was looking, so it's almost like it followed her there.
Yeah, that would make some sense. The only other thing to mention is the robot that came with her is conflicted because they have no purpose, no mission. And it just says at the end, "I will wait until one presents itself to me." And I'm like, that's a bit ominous. Depending on what you think's a worthy cause, like, your mission might end up being something bad, but...
Because the robot's, like, the judge has been exterminated, and its entire job is to assist the judge, right? And it's like, but your mission's the same. So... I'm not supposed to be, doing this with you, right? The whole poison of the whole reason that the judge had this was almost to keep this thing, whatever it is, locked away here. So, yeah, very, very. And I do love that page where it's after she lands on that planetoid, and you get Kara in the space of that planet, right? In the bright yellow. And it's different things of her experiencing, like, those vines coming out. I think that's a really cool page.
Well, yeah, I mean, the main thing that works about it for me is the idea that, like, each of these circles that the panels are in, they're all circular, is that they're all at, like, one's upside down, one's coming from the left, one's coming from kind of the right way up. And it's the idea that because this planetoid's so small, as she's walking around it, she's literally, like... a few steps and she's, like, pointing that out to a different direction of space because it's that small a planet. That's kind of the vibe that it's going for, is that she's walking on a very small sphere, and therefore is, like, I don't know, it is a cool sort of idea and visual that you get from it.
It's very disorienting too, right? Yeah. Because it doesn't follow exactly like she's standing there. But yeah.
Yeah, I still really like the art for this backup. The hair blown in the wind. I really like. I didn't mention the art in the main story too much. It's just still very Clayton Henry. Arguably more Clayton Henry than the last few issues were. But yeah, enjoying the story though in the main.
Yeah, bit, I was hoping the Ether was gonna have a giant forehead, like a movie screen.
But no, really digging the vibe of the backup and the art and all that. So very, very intrigued to see. I'm very interested in seeing who this prisoner is, what they did, and are they actually guilty of something, or is this all kind of a facade on top of what the real thing is that's going on? Is it really just a prisoner transfer, or is it something a bit more meaningful than that? I'm curious, very curious.
That mask that kind of shows the future and stuff in a loop, it almost feels like that in and of itself is the prison. So to see, like, if Kara's meant to free this person, who is this person, and why are they being punished in this way? I think that's my big takeaway. Yeah,
I mean, it's very Dr. Manhattan-y. Like, I can see time from before and after, and everything's happening at once, kind of thing. It's definitely in that kind of vein. So we're very curious to see where it goes. Not that I think it's Dr. Manhattan, for the record.
No, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. Where it has that kind of almost detached kind of vibe, like Dr. Manhattan does.
Yeah. All right, what are you giving Action Comics?
I'm going to give this a solid 8.
Yep, I agree. 8 out of 10. I like the questions that it's poking of, and Clark thinking about Krypton, and I'm really enjoying the backup as well. So, good stuff. All right, Batman: The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, issue 2. Jeph Loeb writing with Klaus Janson, or probably Janson, on art. So, yeah, James Gordon Jr. was kidnapped in issue 1
on Halloween.
On Halloween specifically. Yep. It is now November. It's almost Thanksgiving. Well, I think it's Thanksgiving by the end of the issue, but I think when it starts, it's not quite there yet. which obviously is following the format of the original books, in that, you know, each issue is going to be a different month and whatever holiday happens to fall in that month. So we're getting a Christmas issue next time by that logic then, so that's fun.
But just in time too.
Yeah. So cool. So yeah, there's some goons disposing of Grundy in the ocean. They've got them all chained up with cinder blocks, and they're dumping them there, and they're like, hey, is it true this guy can come back to life? Blah, blah, blah. I'm assuming he will. I'm expecting, like, several issues from now, a sort of Godzilla-like entrance from Grundy coming out of the ocean.
Yeah, so do we know where he's reborn? Because I always thought he was reborn in Slaughter Swamp, right? So you kill him and he comes back, almost like he respawns back in Gotham. So I wonder if that's how he'll make his entrance.
Oh, I suppose, yeah, that's true.
I don't know if it's ever been established if he just, like, you just resuscitate him, might pull him back up, and he's, you know, born on a Monday again.
I guess I just never really thought about the idea that he teleports back to the same location. I guess I always figured that someone put him back in Slaughter Swamp and he came back there because that's where he was.
I mean, and maybe that's what it is, and, you know, but yeah, I'm just wondering if that's how we get him back involved, because he does weirdly feel like an important piece. Because later in the book they call Grundy Two-Face's, you know, friend slash, you know, muscle and whatever. So it seems like he's pretty, I would say, important to the plot, but he's a key piece here to the Two-Face stuff. But yeah, definitely a mob style hit here, right?
Yeah. And then Arkham Asylum, Batman's got Robin there. Robin's first time in Arkham Asylum, and they're, you know, he's talking about various things. There is a line here from Robin that really stuck out to me. That I'm going to assume that the point of this is that it's to show that Robin's young and naive, because Batman raises the idea, right, that, you know, some people think that his presence attracts this type of criminal to Gotham, because he's talking about, you know, the more cartoony villains, the psychopaths.
Yeah, because we've gone from the traditional mobsters, right, to the freaks, and now they're kind of at war after Dark Victory, and so here there's that whole escalation argument that we get at the end of Batman Begins.
Yeah, so he brings that up, and Robin says, that's crazy. That's like saying people get shot because cops carry guns. One thing has nothing to do with the other. And I'm like, Robin, I'm not sure I agree with that, Chief. Yeah. So it was a weird line to read. Now, I think the point is that Robin is incorrect, because I feel like most Batman writers do like the idea that Batman in some way has inspired a lot of the villains that are in Gotham. Rather than this being some weird political statement Loeb's trying to put into the book. I don't think he is, but it definitely, like, made me side-eye it a little bit.
It reads like, oh, you fool.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So, but it stuck out to me either way. Robin gets distracted, though, because Calendar Man kind of lures him over to his cell. So we get kind of like a Hannibal Lecter style.
Who keeps giving Calendar Man calendars? Just don't. Right? Like, he's a big October 31st on the cell wall, you know.
Yeah, to be fair, though, it looks like it's just a poster of October 31st rather than a calendar, despite what Robin says.
No, right, but at the same time, like, is he just ripping those away every day? Like, who's giving him the paper to put that up?
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it is a calendar. I think it is literally just a big sheet of paper that says October 31, because it's just taped on the wall. Look at it.
Oh, man, it's not October anymore. That's right. This is after. I forgot this isn't Halloween night. So.
Yeah, the whole that's the thing Robin says to him, is that you've not changed the calendar. It's already November, and he's like, it's starting again. Which he sounds very like the fireman or the giant from Twin Peaks. It's happening again. But basically, Calendar Man is pissed that someone's going to kill people on holidays again, because holidays are his gimmick. Damn it.
Yes. Well, and he goes, I can't have that. Like, he's angry. You know, that was my thing, and they took it away.
Oh yeah, he's pissed. Batman goes to beat up Mad Hatter because he thinks Mad Hatter might know something about Gordon Jr.'s kidnapping, because Mad Hatter, of course, does kidnap children, and in fact, this references one of the stories from Haunted Night, which was the 3 Halloween specials that Loeb and Sale did before Long Halloween. So that was kind of like the predecessor that led to Long Halloween happening, was them doing those 3 Halloween specials.
Almost like a prototype, right?
Yeah, almost like it was like a proof of concept. Hey, we can do this type of story.
That's what I was looking for, not a prototype, but a proof of a concept. So
it was actually kind of nice to see them reference that and bring that up again.
And you know what? When they make Mad Hatter so creepy, Because right at the end of the day, Mad Hatter is this guy that has mind control. But then when you add kids to it, it adds that extra grimness to him.
I mean, I think this is something obviously the comics don't want to get into because it makes it too dark. But
yeah,
I mean, this is a man who's kidnapping children, and it's especially the line that he has here when Batman throws him away, where he says, "I'm fond of children except boys," and I'm like, okay. I don't think most Batman books would ever actually suggest that Mad Hatter is, abusing these children. But in a real world context, like if someone's kidnapping young children, like my mind's going to assume that they've got nefarious purposes for said children. Now, I'm not saying that that's how Mad Hatter should be written, but it's kind of like, it's hard not to kind of think of Freddy Krueger or something like that and compare him to that type of villain.
I was just gonna say that it's very Freddy, right? Where as part of this origin is the kid killer part of things. So yeah, it added a bit of grimness, and it makes sense why Batman is so gloves off here, right? Because he is dealing with the missing boy. Yeah, right? He's like, oh, what do you know? Tell me what you know. I don't have time for these games, So Batman's violence here makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, if they ever wanted to do a Black Label book where they really wanted to address like Mad Hatter being a creep towards the kids, like he could actually become the most like disgusting and nefarious villain in Batman's entire Rose Gallery, but understandably no one really wants to actually tell that story because
and I get that, although I do like when there's a group of villains and there's one guy off to the side that like you have the Joker be like, yeah, we don't invite him anymore, because even they're put off by him. And I like when they do that.
So Robin jumps in and interrupts this whole thing and says, hey, we have to go, there's something going on. Catwoman's in the infirmary in Arkham Asylum. Now, I was a bit unclear here if she'd like snuck in and the doctor was just helping her because she's been shot in the leg, or if she'd been like captured or whatever. But she's getting treated for a gunshot in the leg. Obviously, she was being chased last issue by Batman and Robin, and they heard a gunshot. This is kind of the fallout to that. I mean, there's a bit of the typical Batman and Catwoman back and forth here. Robin says, hey, we want to see your gloves as well as the bullet. And she's like, wait, you think I shot myself? And he's like, it's possible. And Catwoman gets like, okay, you're just annoying me. But you, on the other hand, and looks over at Batman and does a little meow. So she's playing her usual flirty games with Batman. Batman's like, hey, I can get you like the best medical help in Gotham if you just sort of like give me some information and help out. And Catwoman's like, no, I'll stay here in Arkham where it's safe. And he's like, safe? And she is like, yeah, it's starting again. Like someone was shot on Halloween night. That means that there's a holiday killer again, right? Thanksgiving's coming up. It was a .22 caliber bullet. And Batman gets all high and mighty and says, I stopped him before, I'll do it again. But yeah, so it really sets up this idea that because this has happened twice before, immediately like some of the villains are like, no, you know what, I'm going to like stay out of sight for a little while. I'm going to hunker down, stay out of the limelight because someone's cutting us off.
Well, especially with Selina, because as we know here, she's Carmine's daughter, illegitimate, right? So this would make her an extra target if it is someone from the Falcones.
Yeah, although I've got some thoughts based on some of the things we see later on about who the killer or killers might be. So Gordon gets like a package from villains here, and it turns out to be some fish wrapped in newspaper and Grundy's coat. And Batman's like, oh, it's Grundy. This means they've killed Grundy, blah, 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 blah. I will say there was a little bit of a forced reference here to Long Halloween, where the other detective in the room, Lopez, like, is like, oh, Commissioner, I didn't know you weren't alone. And Gordon says, yes, he does that, Lopez. I'm like, okay. It's like one of the most memorable, famous lines from Long Halloween is he does that to Harvey Dent when Batman disappears out of the scene. It just felt a little bit forced to me. But, whatever. It's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But the bat signal is turned on. Gordon and Batman go up to see who turned it on. Turns out it's Agent Janson and Special Agent Janson from the FBI.
What?
It's a Die Hard reference, Matt.
Okay, got you. I was like, wait a minute.
Two FBI shop in Die Hard, and it's like, I'm Agent Janson, and this is Special Agent Janson. It was a great reference to Matt. I gave him a second to try and get it.
Nope.
I'm
That's fine.
disappointed.
Because I was reading through this, and I forgot that these guys showed up.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Who turned on the bat signal?" And it's not lighting up as we're talking.
Yeah. But yeah, it's two FBI agents, and they bring the umbrella that was left at the crime scene when the kid was kidnapped. And this is the thing, like I almost like you forget that it's been a month, so Gordon's really like, high strung about this. Yeah, it's like my kid's been gone for a month. God damn it! But very quickly, Batman looks at this umbrella and realizes that they seem to have missed the fact that the handle was like just a cover, and underneath it there was a penguin. So it's like, okay, that's suspicious. But Batman's already thinking there's something dodgy. But like, would they miss this? I don't think they would miss this. This seems like they're doing something intentionally. So the big final scene of the book is the Batman goes to confront Penguin. Penguin goes on the run. There's some narration here about how Penguin's trying to rise in the ranks. He doesn't like all the other villains see him as lesser, so he's trying to prove himself and like get into a seat at the big boys table, as it were. But when he runs away and sort of loses Batman by jumping past the train, you get a classic sort of Penguin with his umbrella gliding down kind of panel. Penguin runs into three men dressed as scarecrows, which would make you think that they're working for Scarecrow, potentially. And they shoot Penguin. There's a great big full page where it goes black and white, and you just get the one bit of color, which is the red blood of the bullet coming through his stomach. And he falls down the stairs. And when Batman arrives, a .22 caliber Luger is left at the scene of the crime. And it's like, wait a minute. If you go back and look at what the guns that the three scarecrows were holding, none of them are holding a .22 caliber Luger. No. And Batman seems to think that because the FBI show up immediately and want to arrest Batman, that they have set him up so that they've got a bad guy to say, "Hey, we solved the case. We found the killer." But so honestly, I don't think that these Scarecrow dudes are actually the killer. I think they're actually just the FBI or people who are working for the FBI in masks, so they can. I mean, that's the implication I got from this anyway.
No, yeah, and it goes back to the beginning where Batman is questioning if his presence is what brings these guys, right? So it's almost as if the FBI going, "Hey, if we get rid of the Bat, we get rid of the freaks. We know how to deal. We know how to deal with the mob. We've been doing that in the history of the FBI, but." The freaks, that's a whole other thing. We get rid of Batman, we get rid of them. So it almost seems like they're trying to bring him in by using this old case, right? Because the handle is all taped up like in Holiday, right?
Yeah.
So it's very reminiscent of that, but it seems very messy too. So
yeah, it also means that we didn't get a kill from the killer in this issue, technically. I mean, unless you count Gurundi, but I don't think I would, because all the kills are always with the same weapon, right? That was the whole gimmick with Holiday, or the Holiday Killer. So,
well, we didn't get a kill in the last issue, did we? He just shot at Catwoman.
Technically that's true. Because we got Den at the end.
Okay. Huh.
Den and Gilda at the end, yeah. Because I was like, was that issue 0? No, it wasn't issue 0. That was definitely issue 1.
Okay.
Yeah. So
the time on these, because of the 0 then the 1, everything is merging together. And then I read Dark Victory so soon. Well, not soon, but so close to this. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wonder if like next issue, are we even moved on from November yet? I would assume we are, just so that the book lines up with the time of year. But at the same time, I do wonder, like, do we start next issue with finding out that there was a kill in Thanksgiving? Because I don't actually think we technically get to Thanksgiving in this issue. I think we're just close to it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think when I was reading it, I assumed that after it cut to the next night or whatever, that it was Thanksgiving now. Because, Catwoman said it's almost Thanksgiving. I assumed that when we went to the next scene that maybe but maybe not.
But yeah, so did Gordon. Gordon said that too, that it's almost Thanksgiving. Almost is bolded. So
I wonder if we start next issue and we find out right away, oh, there was another body found on Thanksgiving, if we've just sort of glossed over it. I'd be curious to see that, but yeah, Penguin ain't looking so hot, to say the least. So yeah, so it ends with the FBI trying to come and arrest Batman, and Batman drops a smoke bomb to vanish out of the scene. So yeah, I mean, the book is still very good. I really like the vibe. The early days style of story for Batman usually hits quite well. especially since you're in these early stages with these relationships with all the various characters. Catwoman here feels very early days and stuff like that. So, enjoyed that. Enjoy his relationship with Robin kind of developing continuously. Art-wise, the Klaus Janson art, I think it's all right. Like it's got its moments, but it definitely I feel is a bit more hit and miss than.
Yeah, so Janson's are typically a lot more polished. This feels kind of rushed.
Yeah.
Like there's a sketchiness to it where I mean like there's a lot of straight lines and whatnot where it doesn't feel like that kind of like we got some Klaus Janson art for that Mr. Freeze special that we read a little while back, and that looked great. So.
Yeah, I also wonder if part of what we're maybe going to encounter here is that because I think the colorings try to keep everything consistent and more like, not so much, not even so much like Sale, because like Long Halloween does not look like this book, right? This looks different from that book, but I wonder if the coloring try to keep it feel more consistent. That maybe some artist styles are going to maybe clash a little bit with
that makes sense.
The style of coloring that they're doing. Yeah. Maybe that's what's happening here a little bit as well. But there's some nice stuff though. I mean, Penguin, using his umbrella and flying around at the end is kind of fun. I enjoyed all the stuff with Catwoman and the other characters in Arkham, looking pretty good. Yeah, I think more than anything else, this issue kind of sold me on the idea that tensions are rife because Gordon's son's been missing for a month. Batman's just basically, and he admits this in his narration, he's just like on a long shot trying to get information he's picked a villain at Arkham who might potentially know something, but there's no actual leads there. There's nothing telling him that Mad Hatter's involved. He's just grasping at straws. And
then when Penguin or when Hatter gives him the clue about Penguin, it's because he changes some of the stuff from Alice in Wonderland, right? So even then it feels like he's just going off on a lark because Batman was looking for a lead. So he was going to take anything, right? Yeah,
the fact that, that's a good point. The fact that Penguin's name came up from Mad Hatter and then Penguin was actually something that he was being directed to, it does feel like, at very least everything in this issue, if not the entire scheme in general, is all just designed to send Batman on a goose chase, because the fact that Penguin's then the thing that the FBI have effectively planted for Batman to go check out so that they could then possibly frame him for the murders makes me think that they'd also said something to Mad Hatter. And this is all a scheme. Maybe everything about this is all a scheme to deal with Batman. I don't know, but certainly there's something fishy going on, and I think whatever is going on is a lot more complicated than just someone is killing people once a month. I don't think it's that simple.
No.
So
I don't think so either.
Yeah. Still enjoying it though. Still looking forward to the next issue, and I like the feel of the world in the book and this Gotham, and it does feel kind of old school, and it's nice to kind of come back to this every month. So, what are you giving the last Halloween issue to?
I'm gonna 7.5.
Yeah, I think I'd go with 8 for this one as well. Okay. There's something about this. This I don't know, version of Gotham and this version of Batman that just clicks. Maybe it's because Long Halloween's like the second or third Batman book I ever read. It feels integral to Batman to me to have this type of Batman. So, all right. Poison Ivy Swamp Thing, Feral Trees, issue 1, WIllow Wilson writing with Mike Perkins on the art. Matt, take it away.
Yeah, so this is a fun Halloween style story, despite the fact that it takes place in January during the dead of winter. But it opens with a guy walking his dog in the northwest part of Gotham where there's this forest. And the dog hears something, starts barking, runs off the leash. Dog goes missing. And then the guy finds the dog's leash in a tree, right? And it's just hanging there. And as he's looking for his dog, a tree branch comes up from behind him and stabs him through the body, like the torso and everything. And then it that's kind of the end of the cold open where we get this awesome kind of just moody title page out of Perkins. And it transitions over to to Harley and Pam sleeping in the bed, and Swamp Thing as well, in the marshlands outside of Gotham, also sleeping. And there's this thing that they do throughout the issue where we get kind of Ivy's perspective and Swamp Thing's perspective. And this is Alec Holland. This isn't the Ram V, whose character I'm drawing a blank on.
Levi.
His character. Yes, Levi. It's not Levi. This is Alec Holland. And they both wake up almost as if there's been a disturbance to the green, right? And both of them are ruminating on what it means to protect, what does it mean to be alive here?
What is life? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more.
And throughout this issue, I'll just cut to the chase here. It shows the difference between Swamp Thing as this representative for the Green and Pam, who's kind of doing her own thing. Because throughout the issue, we see some other, members of the Parliament of Trees. And then one of them calls Pam a half in, half out. And she takes umbrage to that because she's very much on the side of ecology, right? She's about the plants and the trees. That's her whole gimmick. But then as the book goes on, Swamp Thing points out to her, she's like, yeah, but we do things for the trees. You do things because the people. And at a certain point, Pam's like, well, wait, what about all the people I've tried to kill? She's like, and Swamp Thing's like, yeah, but still you're doing this to save life. It's not just about, it's about all life for you, not about the trees like it is for us. And throughout this, anytime we have, Pam and Alec, we're seeing both their different perspectives, how they're going at this. And he feels the disturbance because of the trees. So that's why he responds. She sees this and sees that the, fifth person disappears, and she's going to go find out why. As they both show up there, she suits up because she's feeling cold. She needs some protection. That's where she sees Swamp Thing, where he looks very monstrous. He's kind of in the shadows. And she feels like there's a person in there, like almost like there's someone calling out through the green. And she wants to find her. Turns out it's a woman. The deeper they go into this forest, the more things start to get weird. Like the trees are bleeding human blood, right? And this is where she feels like there's something more going on than just the trees going rogue. And Swamp Thing points out, like, this is different because the trees are supposed to be asleep. It's the dead of winter. They're supposed to be dormant. Why are they doing this? And they keep searching. Swamp Thing starts kind of ripping, not the trees apart, but, making a clearing through them. And they start finding bodies. And it's a lot more than the 5 people who have gone missing. The trees start attacking Pam, and they won't respond to her. There's almost something that's blocking both Swamp Thing and Ivy's powers from working on the trees. So they end up falling into this hole where they end up kind of in the root system, and they come across this character who Alec calls the Kettle Hole Devil. So I did a deep dive, and I haven't read the Alan Moore Swamp Thing, but apparently this is a member of the Parliament of the Trees that in Moore's story, he was a union organizer in Chicago that was also working at a brewery, and the business didn't like that he was trying to unionize, so they killed him and threw him into like this fermenting hops, and that because of him and what he stood for, the Parliament chose him to be a Swamp Thing, right? And so here Alec mentions like, oh, I haven't seen him in forever, and he's like, oh yeah, I've been around. But in the Alan Moore story, he ended up becoming like this understanding that the Parliament's trying to have of humanity, where he kind of represents the idea of industrialization, right? That you can industrialize, but also keep nature in mind, right? But here they just mentioned like he hasn't seen him in a while, that he heard the disturbance as well. He came searching, and he doesn't know how long he's even been in there. And he goes, I just kind of wanted to help, but maybe I just want to go back to sleep. And he's the devil, the Kettle Hole Devil, is the one that calls her, half in, half out, which of course Pam takes umbrage with. Um, but he agrees to kind of follow them along on their mission. Um, and at a certain point, he has to stay behind because it starts going and getting snowier as they're getting closer to the center. Um, and Pam reaches back into the green when they reach this blockage, and she sees a girl that in her past she lived in like this small town, and she could communicate with the plants, and she didn't know how. But anytime she was stressed out, she would go sit on the grass, and you get the kind of get the feeling that she came from an abusive household because the dad comes out and says, I told you to mind your brother, you're worthless trash, but you're out here daydreaming amongst the flowers. So she ran away to Gotham. And as she's there, she ends up hitting rough times and ends up as a drug addict. And she gets kicked out of a shelter because, they don't take to addicts there, and ends up in this park where the trees have now overgrown. And in the cold winter when nobody was caring for her, it ended up that she in her subconscious reached out to the trees in this park, so they helped her, they protected her. And this is where Alec tells her, is like, this is, we're here to protect the trees, you're here for the person, you have to make a choice here, who are you going to side with? And as they're going through, they run into another member of the parliament who's the Jack in the Green, who I remember reading him in one of the series. I think it was The Soul, but I can't remember. But he's another Swamp Thing guy who is also trying to preserve this entire forest, even if it means killing this girl, right? Pam ends up standing on this big hill that's also alive. That's also a member of the parliament. So there's a lot of fun art here that Perkins is having, because the hill looks like this big green, like mossy outgrowth, but it has a face like Swamp Thing, and it talks to her. And each of these different Swamp Things has a different color, right? So Alex is orange, like we're accustomed to. Jack in the Green is like brilliant green. The kettle hole devil is a brownish. So there's a lot of fun here, but she stands on the hill, and that's where she realizes where there's a space that's open, and she goes out there, and as she's trying to reach through to this girl, she's trying to speak to her, to the green, all the vines and the trees start attacking her, to where Alec, in order to save Pam, just yells, "I've had enough." And when that happens, the girl kind of comes out of this tree. Almost like she's in not like quite a cradle, but almost like a bed, right? And I got the vibe that Wilson is trying to put in here that she's on the verge of ODing, right? Because she was an addict, and the trees have been trying to preserve her because of her connection with them. And when Alec had said finally enough, and he finally gets control of the trees, Pam feels like she's dying. And Alex says, well, you have to let her go. She's not meant for this. This is why the trees are out of whack. This is why there's been so many deaths, is everything's out of balance. And so Pam essentially stays there with her and kind of comforts her as she's dying. And Pam's like, I was foolish enough to think that there was a happy ending, but I just should have known, And Swamp Thing tells her the green doesn't save lives, right? We're here just to maintain balance, and balance has been maintained. And that makes Pam realize that, yeah, she's not a member of the green, right? Yes, she can communicate with it. Yes, she uses it. But this is where her and Swamp Thing differ, right? Is at the end of the day, Pam's trying to find her own balance, and that's more on the side of people, right? As the things that she's gone through since Willow's been writing is she went from trying to create this zombie virus that would take out people and preserve the earth to being like, well, no, maybe we can kind of tend to humanity like a garden, and we can find the balance that way. Versus Swamp Thing is like, no, we put the trees first, we put the plants first. That this is what happens when humanity and us try to get along. We just can't. And so she cries out to Swamp Thing. She's like, "You're not angry? You don't want revenge?" And that's where he's like, "No, I don't. I chose the forest. This is how it should be." And Pam stays there in the snow, sitting. And again, Perkins is just killing it here. The forest is done in shades of green with the snow falling, and the tree in which they found this woman in and Swamp Thing takes her back through is in a shadow, and it's very haunting. And the last page we get is Swamp Thing carrying her through this snowy forest, the dead woman whose name is Paula. And he says, the green's a perspective. That which falls in winter will rise again in spring. And death is never the end. So yeah, he just leaves Pam sitting there, and he comes back through this thicket, from which the women came. And a very, very haunting kind of story, and shows where Pam stands in all of this. And despite being set during the dead of winter, a lot of the imagery is very, very fitting for the Halloween season. A lot of these homicidal trees, very, very reminiscent of Evil Dead, right? But yeah, and just the way that Wilson makes the story, that doesn't make it fit because she wanted to tell the story, but it adds supplemental evidence to Pam and her story of being one of two worlds. Where Swamp Thing's made his choice, he'll never be human again, right? That's kind of his whole life. Whereas Pam's like, well, no, I can be both. I'm going to try to do both. And she's not rewarded here for her efforts, right? Because the girl still dies. She can't save her. But, Pam's not going to let that shake her confidence in herself and whatnot. So a very good story. And again, Perkins art doing Swamp Thing again, just perfect. So I'm into this in 8.5.
Okay. All right. Nice House by the Sea, issue 4, James Tynion the fourth, writing with Álvaro Martínez Bueno on the art. So, last issue was the big one where a few of the characters of the original house were in the world of the second house.
Mm-hmm.
This issue continues on from there in some really interesting ways, where people in both houses kind of start to think and discuss and talk about what it means that there's another house and potentially the pitfalls of what's going forward. And it kind of presents the Nice House by the Sea as the more intimidating house, because some of the characters, the ones who control that world, who've got the controls and monitor people, turns out they've got like little GPS trackers on everyone with this tech, and they know that there was 3 extra people there, and they go to question Oliver, the actor, about it. To the point where they start like using the controls to take away like the bones in his legs to torture him because he won't tell them anything. Yeah. So that gets super dark on that side of the story. And then,
this is where Tynion remembered this is a horror story, because when the guys go, "We'll just take his bones," and I was just like, "Oh no, and you see him fall.
Yeah,
and it's ghastly.
Yeah, it's really wild stuff. Which is the sci-fi elements obviously allow them to be that grotesque. But then in the main house, the original house by the lake, the characters, like, I loved the conversations they were having about all this. Obviously, there's some backstory kind of filled out again about Oliver and the fact that Walter was super into Oliver, and they tell a story of how he was Walter was taken to a play and Walter wanted to leave and his friend didn't know why, and it wasn't until afterwards that all of the friend group like actually got mad at the comedian character from taking him there, because that's Oliver. That's the infamous guy that Walter was into that ditched him when he went to college.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. The play that they're seeing is Midsummer's Night's Dream, right? Which is a Shakespeare play which is about the gods meddling with mortals just because they're bored. And I'm wondering if that's a tell on where Tynion's going with this story.
I mean, I don't know if it's going to go in the same place, but that is absolutely an intentional, nudge. There's no way that's not intentional.
Oh yeah. But yeah, just the whole idea of him being in this play, right? And sets Walter off on this almost starts Walter's spiral. I like that part too.
Yeah, but it doesn't lead to what happens. And these things with the houses was always going to happen. That was always there beforehand. And it's worth mentioning that despite all we hear about Oliver ditching Walter and going to a different college, even though, because it kind of answers why Walter has a completely different group of friends from college than he does from high school.
Yep.
It's like two separate groups that he's got. It's because he actually moved across country to a college that he thought Oliver was going to, rather than going to the college that all of his friends were going to, only to find out that Oliver had changed his mind without telling him to get, to run away. The reason for that, we don't know yet. I'm sure that's something that might come up.
Yeah.
But that seems to be this point where he ended up building an entire second group of friends. And that's why we have these two sort of eras of where he met people. I like that because it was like, oh, this didn't really need an explanation, but I like that there's a little reason as to why it's a completely separate group of people.
Yeah, well, and it also shows that he's also kind of very possessive, right? Because the way that he goes to find him at
we
the
knew
school,
that, Matt. Let's be honest, we knew that.
No, yeah, but it shows like this drove him to be even more possessive of his friends, right? Like, had Oliver, been more truthful with him, how different is Walter's life, right?
Well, I think what's fascinating is there's a page here. This is before all the stuff goes down where the other guys come to like question him. Where Oliver's on his own and he's got a shoebox full of photographs with him and Walter when they were teenagers, which does imply that Walter did mean something to him, right? Like, it's not just that he hates Walter necessarily. And I think exploring, maybe the reason why he ran away from Walter is because on some level he was, I don't know, maybe it wasn't so much, oh, I don't want anything to do with that loser. Maybe it was more, oh, this is getting too intense, or he knows too much and he's scared of the alien stuff if he knew that at the time. I can't remember if he did or not. But, there's stuff to explore here, and it definitely came across intimidating the way that other characters came in. There's also these great little flashback pages where it's like security camera footage of like when Walter was like enrolling in college, and there's some confusion because he pulled out of that place like 2 weeks earlier, and it's like this footage gets deleted because obviously he's on camera transforming as an alien, so he has to get rid of it. So whatever. Well,
and just it's almost like he's having complete mental breakdown because you follow the cameras and it feels like you're pulling out more, and you get to the page where he's coming out of the windows and up towards the other camera, and you kind of see his face, and he looks more like he's in anguish than anger, right? So
maybe a little column A, a little column B potentially. It does seem like this is when he found out that Oliver had ditched him effectively, right? That's it feels like that's what this moment is. But the main house, the original house, is the one that truly fascinates me, though, because one, you've got Nora feeling weird because of the whole Max thing and doesn't even want to go to the meeting that everyone has. But the rest of the group have this conversation about what to do now. And everything they talk about, obviously, because obviously some of the group didn't know the whole Oliver saga. The ones who knew him in high school explain it, so we get that. And I love how he points out, this is without any of the alien shit added in. But it explains the Oliver stuff, and it explains the Max stuff, and that it sounds like Max and Walter knew each other and went to the same prep school, and maybe that's, as they theorize, is prep school just code for alien training for human integration or whatever.
Alien boot camp.
But so they explain kind of how they were separate, and that Walter got mad at Max for breaking up with Nora at the time and sort of ruining all that. And that's obviously why Nora feels weird about all this Max stuff. But what really gets fascinating to me here is they start questioning it. Look, eventually the powers that be, whoever's in charge of these aliens, was going to figure out that something happened to Walter. But they point out that it could have been centuries before they even noticed because of, the lifespans of these beings, the timelines, whatever. It could have been centuries that we had in here before anyone even noticed that something was wrong, before they came and just stamped us out for whatever reason. But because 3 of them have went to the other house, and that Max might come asking questions or looking, there's a chance now that at any minute, the powers that be will find out that something's not right, that Walter has died. Seemingly, right? They think he's dead. I'm not convinced.
No.
I think he's the dog. But the point is that they now have to live under this like constant fear that they're about to be found out. And then to add on to that, this idea that they've realized that Walter was meant to find and build a house that's full of the best of the best, the best of each field, the best artists, the best, the idea that all these houses are competing. And it's like, But he didn't do that with us, so he already broke the rules. We're already kind of like not supposed to be here. There's two artists as well, which is also breaking the rules. Like all of this is all showing that he wasn't playing in the way that he was supposed to. He was doing all this stuff. And then it gets really interesting later when they're sort of continuing these thought lines where they mention that, okay, he knew that all these houses were competing and only one gets to live at the end. And he chose to put the house full of people that he cared about rather than the best of the best, because he wanted it to be people that he actually felt something for, right? So presumably he wants us to win. However, if he wants us to win, then that means he thinks that the other houses would all die. Therefore, the problem there is that we know how much he cares about Oliver, and he knows that Oliver's in the other house. So, and they're like, oh shit. And I actually, like, they kind of explain what they think by the end of the issue, but even as soon as one of them said, oh shit, I was like, wait a minute, is this implying that he intentionally put the house full of people that he didn't think would win to save Oliver's life? I thought that for a second, but then the conclusion they get to, which might be right, and it's also fascinating, is that, and this is another example of Walter continually to bend and break the rules that he's supposed to be working under, is that they then come to the conclusion that Walter intentionally had a gateway to the other house because Walter wants them to save Oliver from the other house and bring Oliver to their house, which makes me think, does Walter have like a plan to like rig the game so that his house wins? Like, I will say this, when they think of this suggestion, the dog, who I suspect is Walter, seems very happy about that and gets all
wagging his tail.
Yeah, he's licking him in the face. I mean, that's how it ends, is the dog's delighted about this.
Well, and there's a bit more sinister stuff there too, because he says he wants Oliver to finally choose him to say that he was right.
Yes.
And that's, again, that's not just he wants to save his friend. It's like, no, I was right. Now, tell me I'm right. And you're just like, Walter's almost there. And he's almost. And
maybe it's kind of working because, like I said, there's that scene in the other house where Oliver's looking at the photographs of Walter and clearly reflecting on his past. So maybe he is getting to that point.
And just the way the whole other house turns on Oliver too, right? That there's a group of them that elect to, where's he going, and they choose to take his legs out and whatever. So it just shows that house is also full of not good people.
Well, I mean, the whole point there is that they want to know more about these people that were here. Yeah. Like, so Oliver, tell us about them, tell us everything you know, and he doesn't want to. He basically says, piss off. And then they use the magic powers of the house to take away his bones in his legs, and he collapses, and it's basically just a form of torture to try and make him speak. It's very horrific, it's very monstrous. I think it furthers the idea that was already established that the people in Oliver's house are, because they are actually the best of the best in their fields, they are very egotistical, they're very arrogant, and they're very cutthroat, very much the 1% of the 1% ensuring that they're the ones who are going to live. It's the idea of the billionaire with their bunker who will survive the nuclear apocalypse saying, no, you poors get out. I must be the one who lives. And it feels like all this asking questions is them wanting to kill the original house. They want to make sure they're going to win by taking out the other one. Now, whether that means they're going to try and sneak over and kill them, or just rat them out to max, or whatever the path is that they're going to take, it feels that they're asking for malicious reasons to try and take out the other house. Whereas our original house, full of our more normal quote unquote people, they just are questioning, okay, does this mean we're in danger, and should we save Oliver because that's clearly what Walter wanted. I don't know, very, very not that I doubted Tynion in any way, shape, or form, but I am so impressed with a few issues into this second series, how it feels like everything's coming together in this really weird way that feels like it just makes sense to me.
It really does feel like a season 2 of a TV show.
It does, and because the groundwork was laid, and it's adding this new context to some of the things that we always knew, like the different ages of the two friend groups, one that he built in high school, then college. Now, there's a reason for that actually makes sense.
And look, I'm not going to say I can remember all the names of the characters, but the characterization is so strong.
I mean, I can barely remember the names of any of the characters, never mind all of them.
Right. But, we know who the actor is, right? We know the characterization there. We know Nora. Nora's probably the only one that I really remember because they say her name so much. Right.
And I remember, I can remember it now because I just read this. It's Ryan, but the blue-haired artist is was the last-minute substitute. Like, I remember that about her. I remember a bit about Reggie. I remember a few of them. So no,
but my point is the characterization is still so strong, right? That as you're reading this, you don't really need to remember their names. Everything still clicks.
Not so much. And the other thing we haven't mentioned yet, actually, is that when they're talking about what to do, they're like, hey, what if they come and try and check because we snuck over there? And they're basically saying, can we trick them? Can we fool whoever's going to come and check into thinking that Walter's still alive? And they suggest a few things, but basically they're like, oh, do we Weekend at Bernie's it? And someone suggests that, hey, what if we just say that Walter, like we found out stuff, we got mad at Walter and said we didn't want to see him, so he's off sulking somewhere. And I like that because they kind of point out that that's what Walter was like. Walter would go into moods and like go off on his own. So this idea that they can maybe bluff their way through if someone does come to check, but they also point out, well, we have to get rid of Walty's tombstone then. And also, there's a problem with, like, if they realize that one of us died, then why is there still 12 people? Because it should only be 11 at this point.
Yeah.
Like, all these like details are just so well ingrained at this point, and I love how they're all playing off of each other. It's making it super exciting. And the funny thing is even though the main house doesn't know this idea of like, oh, maybe Walter wants us to save Oliver, that comes up right after we see Oliver being tortured by his house. So he actually does need saving. It's not just about saving him from the eventual, oh, one house is going to win, and if his house loses, he'll die. No, he is living a miserable existence over there at the moment, and probably could use some saving.
Yes. So, well, and it felt like, well, he didn't like the other people there either, because from the beginning, from that first issue, he was off by himself a lot, and they mentioned that. So again, it just works on those levels. I also just want to point out in the characterization that I was bringing up that I think it's who's the bald guy? Let me go to the blonde guy at the end. He is the pianist, right? When he's talking to Ryan, just their entire back and forth about, moving the gravestone and stuff. Yeah. I see that's a lot of good character writing here. You can feel the chemistry between them. About that, and so I like seeing, like, again, like it's like a second season of a TV show. You see other relationships developing. Yeah,
for sure. So, and that stuff's really well done. It's juggling a lot of characters. It's juggling a lot of big ideas. And I think the idea at the house that's new for this season, quote unquote, the Sea House, is that it's effectively turned that house, barring one character, into a group of villains. Effectively. Very quickly, so it does make it feel like they're against each other, and our house of quote unquote good characters aren't even aware how much of a threat the other house is yet, like, because everything we see in the Nice House by the Sea in this issue implies that they are a threat, that they're going to try and in some way or other screw over the original house because they see it as a competition that they need to win, whereas our house are only concerned with surviving, which fundamentally just feels like that makes sense. Like, if you think about the real world and you think about your billionaires versus your poors, the poor people are just trying to survive, where the billionaires like, how can I become more billionaire? How can I become more successful? So
right, I need it all. Yes. They can't have any. It's all for me. Yeah,
line must go up forever, infinite growth, all that jazz. So yeah, this was excellent. Arguably the best issue of this series so far. Meaning that this particular
this section.
Nice House by the Sea specifically. Yeah, great. And obviously, we haven't mentioned the art yet, but you almost get into like a lull of not doing it because it's the same artist every issue and it's the same standard of excellence. But I want to point out that after they take Oliver's legs and it's all bloody and whatever, they also say, oh, we'll have him speak later. For now, take away his mouth. And it's kind of like that scene in The Matrix where the mouth closes up and it's just skin. Phenomenal stuff. Phenomenal art. And of course, the photograph of him and Walter that he was holding, or it was in his book, floats away. So, no, very, very interesting. And it also makes you question as well, did Max specifically pick Oliver just to piss off Walter?
Well, and I want to know what happened with Max and Nora, because the way that Nora goes on, Max is the devil. that, I want to see that story.
We're absolutely going to get that in one of these issues. I have no doubt about that. Excellent stuff. Even just something as simple as the sort of the guy who leads the charge on torturing Oliver. When Oliver walks into that little sort of terrace area with the tables for breakfast, the way that other character's sitting there in the chair is like, this is the art doing this. The art is telling us this guy is evil. He's threatening. We should be scared of him. Oliver's all confident, of course, but then they gang up on him and start using the controls to mutilate him, basically. So, phenomenal stuff. Matt, what are you giving Nice House by the Sea?
8.5.
9.5.
Oh, got you.
This is excellent. This was phenomenal. The way everything's coming together and building, like, it's not just a great read now. It's actually like it's built so much good stuff that it's exciting. The cliffhangers are genuinely like, oh god, I can't wait to see how this develops next. So, great stuff. That will take us on to the final part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and of course top 5 books. Well, top 3 or 4 depending this week. All right, Matt, what is your panel / moment of the week?
Okay, so we just talked about Nice House, and I think the moment with Oliver's disappearing legs, that one's pretty good. Also, I love the dynamic between the pianist and Ryan. I thought that was a lot of fun. But for me, it's going to be the last page of Ivy and Swamp Thing, with Swamp Thing carrying the dead body through the snowy trees. It's just a very haunting image. So that's mine.
Yeah, it's definitely something from Nice House by the Sea for me. I kind of just want to say the final page for the, Walter wants us to save Oliver. That realization just sort of landed so well that I have to kind of pick it, I think.
Yeah.
Even though it's not the most artistically interesting page from like a visual point of view, but
no, but again, it's doing a lot with a little,
Yeah.
So.
There's so much weight behind it. All right, cover of the week. There's not a lot of books, obviously, so not a lot to I want to shout out one of the variants for last Halloween. It's the J. Scott Campbell variant. Because it's Batman holding a pumpkin, but the jack-o'-lantern's got a bat symbol in it. It's just a really simple idea that I think works really well.
Yeah, all of them kind of have the jack-o'-lantern mouth carved into kind of a bat.
Yeah,
because it also has eyes, so it definitely works on that level. But yeah,
really dig that. My pick though is going to be the main cover for Nice House by the Sea, which is the comedian with a mic on a stage, but the curtain is like a field of dead animals, which is really ominous. So just a really good, just because it's almost like you could just have them standing in front of the field, but there just happens to be fold lines, which make it feel that it's a curtain. So it just looks really cool. Not a lot to pick from this week though, admittedly. What's yours?
Yeah, so you mentioned the Long Halloween J. Scott Campbell one. There's an Action Comics variant from Ibrahim Mustafa that's got Clark looking down Ether, which looks pretty cool. But, it is a week with Ivy out, so I'm going to showcase some of these. There's a Mike Perkins variant cover that's got Ivy and Swamp Thing, being attacked by the trees. The trees are done in purple. There's bright orange behind them. That looks really good. There's a Ashley Wood cardstock variant that's, again, Ivy and Swamp Thing, but they're against snow and some really desolate looking trees. But my pick for that one is going to be the Clayton Crane, which is a little bit more cartoony, but it's got this massive beast looking Swamp Thing, and then Ivy done up in her traditional look, but the red hair is really sticking out, and they're against this drab background, so it makes the greens and the reds really pop. Also, Swamp Thing's carrying an axe, which, come on. But yeah, so that's my pick.
The pervert pick, I agree. All right. Top, 4 books for you, I guess. Matt, go.
Did we do art?
Oh, we didn't do art. Okay, good point.
We didn't do art.
Yeah. What's your art of the week then?
Oh yeah, so Nice House on the Sea is very good with Bueno. I want to point that out. However, it's Mike Perkins doing Swamp Thing, and it's a thing that got me through the week. So that's my pick.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't read that, so for me, it's easily Bueno on Nice House by the Sea. Not even a competition this week.
Yep.
All right, there you go. Top books, Matt.
Top 4. All right, Poison Ivy, Swamp Thing, number 1, Nice House number 2, Action Comics 3, Long Halloween, Last Halloween 4.
Yeah, number 1 for me is Nice House by the Sea. Number 2, it's probably Last Halloween, and number 3, Action Comics. But I mean, I didn't read a bad book this week, so I'm not complaining. So fun. All right, let's take a look and see what's coming out next week from DC Comics. We have Batman 154, Absolute Superman issue 1. We have Action Comics 1074. We got the Green Arrow 2024 annual. Why wasn't that out this week? That's weird.
That should have been.
Yeah, strange. Poison Ivy 27, Birds of Prey 15, Batgirl issue 1. So yeah, that new Batgirl book starting next week. So a couple of interesting things to check out. We also have Shazam 17, JSA issue 1. That's the new Lemire JSA book starting next week. We have Plastic Man No More issue 3. Plus there's also My Adventures with Superman 6, DC Horror Presents Creature Commandos issue 2, and a few Scooby-Doo books and whatnot. So, I have 8 books, plus probably a Patreon book next week. So, yeah, nice meaty week.
Yep, I have 9.
Yes, you do. Yes, but they all look good, though. Well, yeah. Maybe Batman aside, I suppose. But even that last Batman issue wasn't bad.
No, yeah, I don't. Again, the owls so far show some promise. So
yeah, there's things to be happy about.
Also, Absolute Superman. I'm after the last 2 Absolute books. I'm very, very excited for this one.
In fact, let's be honest, Matt. You could probably stop slacking, catch up in Green Arrow, and read that too.
Look, I'm not gonna say that I caught up because I'm not reading that next week, but I did read the last 2
of course
earlier in the week, right? Not missing much. Although the new stuff that's coming from that new team seems promising. Seems to get Green Arrow back to his roots. But yeah, no. And this week, the annual's not getting read. Even if I was reading them, that's low priority. It's an annual.
All right. That's the show, though, pretty much, everyone. This has been Comics from the Multiverse. You can support the show and help keep it coming over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and help the show survive and thrive and whatever other things that rhyme with. I can't think of another word that rhymes with those words. Strive, survive,
thrive.
I said thrive already.
Oh, you did? I missed it. I was reading about what the Green Arrow annual was about, and I'm dodging a bullet.
Yes.
It's a recap of Williamson's run.
Something number 5. That rhymed. All right. That's. Go support us on Patreon if you want to. Helps out a bunch if you do. You can also support us by liking, subscribing, commenting on YouTube, sharing the podcast out, whatever it may be. All those things do help. But that is the show, and it's a shorter one. Oh, it's not as short as I really thought this might be like an hour, and we're still somehow hitting an hour 40. So I don't know what's wrong with us, but here we are. Thank you very much for joining. We'll see you next time. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.